Okay, so for my project, I chose to adapt a lesson plan that I have been using in my class for a couple years now, but it is in dire need of a revamp. So I chose Romeo and Juliet's balcony scene activity. Normally, what I do in this activity is I compare two movie versions of the balcony scene, one the 1968 version and one the 1996 version, and we compare and contrast the two scenes on how each director chose to make the scenes a little bit different. They include different elements of Shakespeare's play, one being the more traditional and one being the more modern, and then we talk about which scene more closely relates to the student and which scene better influenced their understanding of the text. So in order to make this match or fit in with what we've been learning in the class, I adapted it to talk more about the camera techniques and the lighting and the music and the elements that the directors use to create the scene. So I use a student learning map to kind of outline the lesson plan that I've created. I also use these for unit plans. So if you don't have a template that you use to put in your TEKS binder, this is a great, easy template to use that's quick, so that you can make a lot of them. And it's great to have in your TEKS binder if you're wanting to for your principal or your evaluator to see exactly what you're doing in the class. So key learning, I use of the visual text to make meaning, understanding how images and camera angles can insinuate power, identifying the different characteristics of film and the intended use of these characteristics to make overall meaning, and how the use of modern day images can help a student to better understand an ancient text. So some of these essential questions that I use is, how do directors and producers use camera angles, lighting, character interaction, and setting to create understanding of the play? And how does the use of these elements help the audience to relate and connect with the play? And what mood and tone does the director portray in each version of the play? And how do they compare and contrast with each other? Okay, so I have 3 sections that I typically focus on when I'm creating a lesson. That is the text, the writing, and the project, or what the students are doing with what they're learning. So the main anchor text, if I were to put this in a unit plan, then I would have included the entire play, but since it's just a lesson within the unit, I put Act 2, Scene 1, Romeo and Juliet, plus the 2 movie versions, the 1968 version and the 1996 version. I added the supplemental text of Jones and Hafner, Understanding Digital Literacy as a Practical Introduction, because I want to include excerpts from that book so that the students would be able to understand the different types of camera angles and shots that can be made, and what each of those shots is insinuating as far as power and the relation to the audience. All right, the writing section, there are several things that I added within the writing section that kind of involve the students. I have the graphic organizer that the students would be creating as they are watching the 2 movies. So they're filling in this graphic organizer and they're showing the different aspects that I'm wanting them to focus on as they're watching the 2 movie versions. I did provide an example of the graphic organizer for you in my folder. Some of the terms I would cover would be stage directions, lines, dialogue, narration, iambic pentameter, characterization, scene, act. I put students will complete their own version of the balcony scene by providing a script and a digital copy of their version. This assignment will be a group effort, and each person within the group will be assigned a role within the project. Okay, so the students, after they are watching the 2 movie versions and we have discussed them together in class, they are then going to create their own script of the balcony scene, and they are going to use that script in order to make a movie scene. So that is the last portion of the project. So some of the terms that I would cover with the movie scene part of it would be the camera angles, music, lighting, character interaction, word choice, audience, and storyboard. After the students have created the script of their scene, they will then have to construct a storyboard of the scene to help guide their movie, and the students will provide this before moving on to shooting their movie, and they will share their storyboards to another group. The other group will provide feedback to the storyboard, which the student can take into consideration while creating their movie. All right, so the movie itself, they have to provide, they can do it in a variety of settings, and thankfully at our school we have access to both Mac and PC computers, so the students really have a good variety of media that they can use to create their movie. So they could use iMovie or Windows Media Live, or they could use WeVideo. And they are going to be playing around with the different camera angles and lighting and music in order to create this movie scene that would best fit their student culture. Some of the standards that are covered throughout the lesson I provided here, so that if an administrator were coming in to see the assignment or the lesson, they would understand what standards were being covered in the class. Now, this assignment does, there are other standards that overarch this assignment, but these are the ones that I feel like I highlight the most throughout the lesson. So if you go back to my folder, I provided for you the different graphic organizers I would use to complete the lesson. So this is the balcony scene graphic organizer, where I ask the students to compare the 68 to the 96 version. And these are the things that I'm asking them to look at: language, setting, character interaction, and music. Each of my graphic organizers, at the end of the charts, they have a section for the student to summarize what the chart is saying. I feel like sometimes whenever we use graphic organizers, what goes in the charts or what the students are bulleting sometimes is arbitrary or gets lost. The meaning of it gets lost. So I ask the students to summarize what the chart is actually trying to tell them. And I think this kind of solidifies in their mind exactly the differences and the similarities between the two versions. The other graphic organizer that I include is the storyboard graphic organizer. I did not include a camera shot graphic organizer for each shot because I would want the students to have 15. So I just made an example one of what my graphic organizer would look like. And I give them the directions to complete the storyboard below by adding detailed drawing, camera angles, lighting, music, and script lines. I kind of left it pretty open to interpretation because I want the students to be creative. They're going to know or have the different camera angles that they can use. They can use music as long as it's, classroom appropriate, and then whatever lighting, they're going to have different angle or different things, like whether it's going to take place at night or during the day or whenever that will be. I provided a section for them to add the script lines that scene will be covering, so that it gives them kind of a step-by-step paper version of what their video project is going to look like. This is a great tool for me to use to evaluate where the students are within the process. After the storyboards are created, I would have the students share them with another group, and then I would have the other group give that group feedback on their storyboard and what they could do to improve it before they actually shoot their movie. Lastly, I gave you the Romeo and Juliet balcony scene movie project assignment sheet. So I'm going to briefly just go over this. I give them a brief description of what I'm wanting them to complete, and then I give them a detailed description of what each role is within the group. And then for the timeline, I just gave you an estimate of what I would think it would take to create this. I actually think that my 1 week is probably a little too short. I would probably need more like a week and a half maybe to complete it from start to finish. Trying to see. Next, I included the rubric for you to see how I would grade the project. Each of the roles are represented on the rubric, and they would get a total of 100 points for completing the assignment. So it doesn't count against, like, if one person doesn't complete a part of the project, then it doesn't count against that person's grade. That's one of the reasons why I like using these. And